Hello and welcome to 21 for 21, the sports media podcast that brings you all you need to know about sport and media in the 21st century. I'm Stuart in Dusseldorf, joined as always by Jamie in Barcelona. And this week we were really lucky to follow up on one of our earlier topics, Jamie.
Yeah, that's right. After talking on episode 2 about the rise of women's football and the deal that UEFA signed with YouTube and DAZN to stream the Women's Champions League, we spoke to Arianna Criscione, who, let's be honest, she knows football inside and out, Stuart.
Yeah, I mean, she's been a player. She's been an international player for Italy, and now she's got a really, really cool job as the director of women's football at N3XT Sports. So it's really interesting talking to her, well, about her whole life in football, really.
Yeah, and we recorded it actually just the day after the UEFA Women's Champions League quarter-final between Barcelona and Real Madrid, which was played at the Camp Nou in front of a crowd. The first time women had played at the Camp Nou in front of fans. And it was a record attendance in women's sport, 91,553 fans in attendance at a packed-out Camp Nou. I was kind of there. I was in the TV studio. And the atmosphere was just absolutely incredible to see, Stuart. So it was really great to follow up with Ariadna on what it is that's causing this kind of disruption of women's football in the world of sport media.
Stay tuned as we speak with Arianna, who was at the previous record attendance game for women's football all the way back when she was a kid in California, and she tells us about her journey through the ranks and how she balanced her playing career with her professional life as well.
Okay, so it's a pleasure to be joined on the podcast today by a former Paris Saint-Germain player and director of women's football at N3XT Sports, Arianna Criscione. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here, and nice little shout out to PSG, especially with their incredible comeback and win last night over Bayern. What an exciting night for women's football last night was.
Absolutely. The Champions League is shaping up to be very exciting indeed.
It's incredible. It's so much fun. I'm not playing in these, and somehow it's more fun watching them than when I was playing thus far. I don't know if it's what DAZN has been doing or just the quality of football on the pitch or what, but bouncing back and forth, or it wasn't necessarily bouncing back and forth. It was one game after the other, but it was just incredible with both teams doing records. Obviously, the Barcelona record with 91,553 people in the stands last night was just incredible. But PSG at Parc de France also got their first ever women's football, well, not first record, but a new record with 27,000. I don't know the smaller numbers on that one, but I know it's 27,000. So also not a number to laugh at. That's amazing numbers in women's football.
Yeah, certainly. And let's hope this is the continuation of a trend. I'm sure young girls all over Europe and the world are inspired to get started playing football. But for yourself, Arianna, when you were a kid back in California, so how did you get started playing soccer, as you would have called it?
Yeah, so soccer, I'll bounce probably back and forth. Normally I say football, but soccer. So I kind of started playing soccer in a unique way, I would say. While playing soccer is really popular in the States, especially where I'm from in Southern California, with our sunny weather, we get to play year round. However, I grew up in a quite Italian American family, and at the beginning, my dad didn't really want my sister and I playing sports. He always thought he'd have sons. He didn't get those sons, and thus decided that we should be very girly, or maybe not necessarily girly, because now it's maybe taboo to say it like that, but he didn't necessarily want us playing sports. He wanted us to be cheerleaders and tap and dance and ballet, or all the things that little nice girls are supposed to do. And then my mom decided one day to sign my sister up for soccer. My sister started playing. The family got involved. Every weekend we were at the pitch. And the next year they got me on. My dad ended up becoming my sister's coach. He got very involved. And the rest was history. We both started playing. And it's really common, obviously, for Americans to do after-school activities, especially sport. And we have a lot of outlets where you don't necessarily have to be good at sport and you get to play, which I think is something amazing. In Europe, it's more of an academy, very aligned to the professionalism of all these sports, which has its pros and cons, but I just think it's great that so many kids can play in the States and they don't even have to be good. They just get to love the sport. I'm digressing, apologies, but yeah, that's how I got involved. I wanted to be like my big sister, and I followed her into the game.
That's great. That's great. And I certainly, I've experienced the sort of different cultures, and there's much more opportunity to play at kind of every level in the States, and get into it at grassroots. I mean, I work at Barca. I'm at Barca, and one of the things that always stands out to me is that Alexia often says that when she grew up, all her idols were men football players, Carlos Pujol, for example. So I was kind of interested as to who you looked up to when you were, this young girl playing soccer.
So as a child, I don't know if I was extremely lucky or just born in the right place at the right time. I actually had female role models. I was at the Rose Bowl, right on the goal line almost, when the United States won the 1999 Women's World Cup. I was in the stadium that day. I was actually on the pitch before the game started. I got to be a part of it. Little project that my club was in. And so I looked up to those women, all of those women on the team. Brianna Scurry in the goal, Brandy Chastain ripping off her shirt after the penalty kick and sliding. Actually, I was really lucky, and I was recently on a panel with one of my idols, Shannon McMillan. Ironically enough, during that game, I caught her shin guard. I don't know why they were throwing their stuff into the audience, but I had her shin guard, and that dirty, stinky shin guard was pinned to my wall in my bedroom up until I went to college. And so it was really fun meeting her, and then being not necessarily a colleague, but being on a panel discussing the development of the women's game and being on par with her, whereas she was actually one of my idols, and sharing that story, which she got a really big kick out of.
Well, so that's a pretty literal way of gaining a hero, capturing the shin guard in a World Cup final. That's a pretty unique story. So, Arianna, you of course went from those early inspirations into a professional career yourself, but I guess you balanced, on and off a professional career, but on and off the field. Was this something all of you guys were doing in the teams around Europe you were playing for, or was this something unique to your sort of drive and passion for doing bits of both?
I wouldn't. It's kind of a loaded question. At times, players were working because out of necessity. They weren't making any money playing football, and the teams were not professional. So at times, I might have been professional because I was a foreigner. But the players on my team who were local were not professional and were barely making any money. Sometimes their gas was being covered to get to and from practice or to get to games. Sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes there would be game bonuses if we won. And that's what they were not necessarily living on, but that was subsidizing their salaries. They were going to school, a lot of them. A lot of female players have university degrees and higher degrees, or they were working because practice was later at night and that's what they had to be doing. I personally, even when I was on full professional teams, always got bored. Not bored of football, but I just don't like being inactive or playing video games during the day or my off time. And so I've always chosen to either study, start random entrepreneurial endeavors, or continue to work. Again, sometimes I needed the money, to be completely honest. Clubs didn't always pay us on time, though every club I paid for, I was receiving enough money to physically live. It wasn't necessarily the best way to be living, but I could live off of my salaries. And I always knew that I wanted more. Once my career was over, I wanted to be able to start something and to continue to develop myself and the game, and not just the game, but I just don't like being stagnant, and I didn't ever want to come to a day where I was just sitting there like, oh goodness, what do I do now? And so I personally had always been developing that, and I just think that there's now more opportunities for more players, not just female players, to help them to create something post-career. And I think now the big players, if you really look, they're all doing stuff outside. Cristiano Ronaldo has multiple endeavors that he works on. That man is never stopping, besides the fact he's always in the gym. You have athletes outside of the game, LeBron James, Tom Brady, Serena Williams has clothing lines and different projects too. So I think if we really look at it, all of the athletes are doing that at a higher level. It's just not trickling down and showing that you're supposed to be doing that. I think sometimes coaches and clubs deter you, saying that if you're not focusing 1000% on your game, then you're not doing it right. And I disagree.
So moving from the professional football, as professional as it was at that point, football career, to your work now then in N3XT Sport, how did that all sort of come about? What was the transition?
So I obviously continued studying during my football career. I went to university in the States, and then during my football career, during my 15-year career, I went back to school and I got a master's in football. And my most recent club, I was not only a professional full-time player for Paris Saint-Germain, but I also worked in the sponsoring department, helping hone my skills and working on that business side of the game. And so I knew that I was going to retire at the end of last season. It was just in the cards. It was planned. And so I had been talking with N3XT Sports. They're a great organization, obviously. And we had come to the conclusion that women's football was the future, and that they wanted to open up this division within the company, and that they fully believed in it too. And they knew that they could add value with their skill sets and my value as an ex-player and understanding the business of the game. Together, we could really make change in the game. And so it started with conversations, and then it ended with a contract and me working at N3XT Sports and us continuing to develop the game for women's football.
Sounds really, really good, and really sort of certainly a good move from N3XT Sports. It's going with the trends, including the sort of the recent Enabling Women's Football to Disrupt the Industry report. I guess has been one of your early big projects.
Yeah, I actually have that right here.
Oh, you have it right here. Perfect. I also have it open in the PDF form. So yeah, for those who haven't seen it yet, can you give a bit of a guide? Tell us a little bit about it. And
yeah, so the way we built our report was it's definitely a team effort. I would love to say that it's all me, but it's not. It was definitely the team of N3XT. We all worked together, and then we also brought in outside expertise on this. So we had a couple roundtables. We had discussions with top people within the industry, from Bianca Reich of Bayern Munich to Pedro Malabia of La Liga, and Ibru Coxel, and many others, some fantastic people. We brought them together and we discussed their sentiments, how they feel, the development, the problems, the pain points, and then we put that into 4 different aspects that we thought needed most focus. And from there, we elaborated. We used what's currently happening within the game and their insights to develop our report. I don't want to go too much into our report because I would love for more people to go and download it and make sure they read it, and then they can come back and ask you guys or ask me lots of questions, and I'd love to answer them. But I want to make sure more people are reading it and that we're getting it out there, that people are looking at it so they can look at the fan engagement, sponsoring, digital, all the different aspects that are really changing and developing the game.
Okay, great. Yeah. So if you are listening, do go find N3XT Sports, find the report, download it, give it a read, and then, as Arianna says, get in touch. And
we have to say, this could be confusing. We do spell N3XT with a 3, so it's N3XT Sports.com. Sometimes people can't find us.
We'll link the page in the podcast notes, so people can find it easy.
Thank you.
So, sort of, this past week's been pretty big actually in the world of women's football. The Euros final in Wembley selling out in record time. Last night, 91,553 fans at the Camp Nou for the quarterfinal, which was also a Clasico. It was almost written in the stars, that one, really. Were you at the Camp Nou, Arianna? Were you able to be there?
I wasn't. I was supposed to be there.
Oh, no.
So I will be at the next one.
You'll be at the next one. Well, they're going to play the semi-finals at the Camp Nou as well, I believe, against either Wolfsburg or Arsenal. As recording, we don't know who the opposition will be. Did you get to watch the match, though, on DAZN and YouTube?
I did. I got to watch pieces of it, and it was so incredible. Also, for me, it's not only is it an amazing day for women's football, but one of my close friends is on the field. And so watching her and getting to text her before the game, and I'm not there, but I get to get a little piece of it when I see her and her family and what she gets to go through. And I'm so excited for all those women, and even I'm excited for Real Madrid. Any woman and coaching staff and people that got to be on that field and look up and see 91,000 people at a women's football match, that just hit the record is, I don't know, it gives me chills. It's so exciting. A lot of people forget that actually the other record was the 99 Women's World Cup. A lot of people actually think it's the 2012 Olympics, USA versus Japan, but it's not. It is the 99 Women's World Cup, to my understanding, unless there's one that was bigger than 90,000 that was at the
No, I think that's right. And that was only sort of 1,500 short of the attendance that was at the Camp Nou last night, I think.
You say 1,500 short. 1,500 is like a lot of women's normal club games are happy to get 1,500 people. So 1,500 short is still a massive amount of people in women's football. So it's incredible. It's absolutely, and being at Camp Nou and one of the cathedrals of football itself. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, maybe you can quote me, I don't know if Camp Nou has sold out this year for the men. So this
by my reckoning, it was it was definitely the most highly attended football match in Europe this season. I would hazard a guess at saying it was the most highly attended sports event in Europe this season. I've not done enough.
I don't know. I won't go that far because I don't want somebody coming after us and saying something.
Certainly, the biggest attendance for Barca men was the Clásico back in October, and I think that was around 86,000, if I remember correctly. So no, it's huge. It's absolutely
impressive. And then I don't know if you guys know, I was actually trying to look right before we started. What is the possible? I mean, Wembley said they sold out, but what does that mean? Can Wembley beat this record? What is the maximum? It's not. They have a lower. Isn't it 70,000 or 75,000?
It's 90,000, so it's 90, just below.
So that little number, that 1,500.
Yeah, which, as we said, it is not an insignificant number at all, because perhaps before this season, even for a big Women's Super League or La Liga Femini crowd, 1,500 people would be a good number. So what sort of tips, or Arianna, or how do you think we can best capitalize on this and ensure that the crowds are closer to the 90,000 than closer to the 1,500 going forward? Is there something particular that can be done to capitalize on the success?
Absolutely. I think it's the digital engagement that comes into it. You know, Barcelona did a fantastic job, and I'm sure Real Madrid, I don't want to leave them out completely, had a little say in this, but Barcelona did a great job of getting the word out early that this game was going to be happening. Everybody knew that this game was happening months out. This was not a surprise, and we all knew that there was going to be a record yesterday. We didn't know how high it was going to be, but they'd already been discussing this record and getting excited. And I think that made more people want to be a part of it. And I think people were searching for tickets, and I'm sure maybe not super famous people, but definitely famous people or anybody in the industry was calling whoever they knew to get tickets into that game. And so I think the digital presence and the digital work that Barcelona had done leading up to the game was really important. And it shows how important it is for women's football that people know. People don't necessarily know that these games are happening. You say Clásico, but most people would assume it's the men's Clásico or something else is happening. And so getting that word out there and using the players and using their digital platforms is really, really important. And I think that's what they did. I know all the players were reposting on their social medias. I think there was a lot of hype being built up about it. And it was sold out months ago. It sold out in January, if I'm not mistaken. So they did a great job. And I think more teams can lean on this and work on this digital aspect, and we go over it in our report. I'm not going to lie. So if people want to know, they can just go check it out.
Yeah, I think that was another record. It was the quickest selling out game in the history books as well. So yeah, no, it's phenomenal to see. Looking forward a little bit then, the 2022 UEFA Euro Cup, the Women's Euro Cup, is being hosted by England this summer. What are we looking at there? I mean, it's already looking kind of good because the final sold out again in sort of record time. But what are the kind of measures for what would make that competition a success in terms of attendance, in terms of media consumption? And what sort of do you think is driving this boom of these recent successes that we've seen?
I think one, it's a business strategy going into it, of understanding it, advertising, putting it out there, getting people knowing. I mean, obviously we just talked about Wembley selling out, so people know that it's happening. I think for a lot of previous tournaments, people didn't necessarily know it was happening, or they didn't know with enough time in order to get there and be a part of it. I think the competitive balance on the field, the fact that more teams are playing at a higher level, the fact that Barcelona is quote unquote blown out Real Madrid in most games that have been played so far. But the past game at Real Madrid, it was kind of close. Real Madrid went up and got you a little nervous. Also, last night, Real Madrid went up first. That got everybody a little nervous. Could this really be happening? And then that 5-2, it made it more exciting. They were beautiful goals. If you didn't see a ponytail or necessarily know, those goals look like it could be the men's team. And I don't necessarily like comparing it to the men's team, but I think the quality of football is getting better the more investments that are happening. And so I think this tournament is going to have really quality football. I think that the tournaments that we saw a month ago, such as the Arnold Clark Cup, showed you with England playing, Spain playing, Canada was in there, Germany. Those were quality football games. They were low scoring games because they were both really, all the teams were really good. And so I think the quality of the product is also going to make this tournament better. I think that's going to get the media investing. I guarantee once media sees that there was 91,000 people last night, that Wembley's already sold out. I think there's going to be more sponsors trickling in, which is going to be huge. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I don't necessarily work on the media side to tell you what would show a success in the tournament from the media perspective. But I think success will also be legacy. How many girls start to play the game once they see this happening? How many sponsors start to pick up and invest in clubs after this and the national teams? The more money we see coming into the game to help develop it will be a bonus for everyone. And then also the development of the quality of the football. I definitely think this might be one of the most exciting tournaments of women's football we've ever seen.
Yeah, definitely. One of the big things I was saying last night was that, okay, it was a victory for Barca, but it was a victory for the sport and for the women's game. You know, what a spectacle they put on at the Camp Nou. We had penalties, we had goals from distance, we had goals from up close. Barca coming back from 2-1 down to 7 goals in total, and in front of all those fans. And that, like, I think for me that was just as important, is to show the world. I've been following women's football for a couple of seasons now since I started here at the club. But to really give, such a big audience, I think DAZN and YouTube, the deal that they've put together has been very important in this as well. And the way that the players from both sides just put on such an amazing show to prove to the world, this is entertainment. I think. And,
100%. And I think even though the score was 5-2, so if you look at it just on paper, it doesn't seem like that exciting of a game. But when you think back to, I believe it was 2018 Budapest, when Barcelona lost to Lyon, and that was literally just a blowout. That was not the most exciting football to watch. It did not look like it should be a final. I guarantee most people started changing the channel, where people stayed on YouTube yesterday. Even though Barcelona kept scoring, they were more towards the end of the game, and they were exciting, really fun football. And the whole time you're like, oh my goodness, could Real Madrid score again? Could this come back? Which again was even seen in the Bayern PSG. That game was absolutely incredible. Bayern had 12 players missing, if I'm not mistaken. They had a bench of 4 players, 2 being goalkeepers, the other 2 being under 18 years. Like, this is just amazing odds that Bayern was winning 2-1 at the end of regulation. So I just think the football is getting better. Everything about it, the whole structure behind it, there's a better strategy going in, and this is really helping the game.
Yes, I think if we mentioned that, sorry, these views are on YouTube, it's not linear TV, and you've mentioned obviously digital coverage as well. So how important is it that players and the athletes are ambassadors themselves on social media?
It's huge, but we have the numbers, and we know that most fans follow players and not necessarily clubs within the women's game. And OTT, again, not to just keep talking about our report, but you can do the report, and you have Ebru Coxel, which is a big name in football in general. She's actually has more experience on the men's side of the game. She talks about this digital presence and how I don't necessarily think women's football needs to go back to linear. I think DAZN has done a huge job in just the last couple of years developing the women's game and showing a different option on how to watch it. And it's not really that big of a weird option because you can watch on your phone, and everybody has their phone. So, I watched half the game on my phone until I got back to my house and was able to put it on my big iPad. So this actually gives, I think, it diffuses the game more. More people have the opportunity to watch it in different places, in different areas. And again, I said earlier, a lot of players were posting the game on their social medias, and a lot of the players have huge social media followings. if you bring all the players per team together, that's going to be a bigger following than the club itself, and possibly even the Champions League itself. And so their following is vital to this.
Good. So yeah, Arianna, as part of our theme of the podcast, 21 lessons for the 21st century in sport and media. So what would you summarize, if you can? What is your one key takeaway, either from your career, playing career, or business career, or from the sports world in general?
I guess my key takeaway is, and it's one that I say about my career, and I want to encourage you, is to be stubborn in what you believe in. And people have been extremely stubborn in believing in women's football. Think about it. The last record was in 1999, which is crazy that it happened then. And people have stuck to women's football and said, no, this is a quality product and we can develop it. And through the right strategy and using digital, we can really develop this game. And we're going to keep going, and we're going to keep going until the world also agrees with us, or doesn't even have to agree with us. We can prove it if we give them the space and we give them the opportunity to be visible and give them the visibility. People will come. 91,000 people came. They didn't pay them to go to the game. Most of those were bought tickets. Clearly there's an appetite for women's football. And so just be stubborn in what you believe in and keep going until you can break the barrier.
I like that as a lesson. That's really, really nice takeaway. Arianna, I feel like we could keep talking for hours, but we must bring it to a close. So thank you very much for joining us and sharing these insights with everyone. We'll remind people again, go find the N3XT Sports report. Do you want to give it a quick, where can we find you? Where can we find your work? And we'll make sure we link it all as well in the description.
Yes, of course, we're on social media, or from a business perspective, follow us N3XT Sports at LinkedIn. You can follow me on LinkedIn personally. I share women's football tips weekly. Tuesdays we have a poll. Thursdays we have insights about that poll. I'm on social media. I'm on Instagram at AC Footballer. I never went back to my actual name, but people are more than welcome to follow me there. Ask me any questions about women's football, and just keep working on the game. Whether you follow us, or love for you to read the report, but you don't have to. But just keep trying to develop the game from all levels, and understand that we can do it differently. Women's football doesn't have to follow the same blueprint as men's football, which we've proven through a digital and the OTT platforms, and just keep pushing forward. Let's keep propelling the women's game forward.
Great. Well, thanks again for your time, Arianna, and thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, and I'm excited for the next games.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see how the Champions League pans out.
No, it was really great having Arianna on, James. It was such a good experience to speak with someone with so much experience on the topic, and I'm sure we're all really looking forward to those semi-finals.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to see the Camp Nou packed out again on the 22nd of April, when Barca play Wolfsburg. Yeah, many thanks to Arianna for coming on. Thanks to everyone for listening. If you've enjoyed the episode, do the like, subscribe, share, and go back and find episode 2, Stuart, which was that original one we did. We spoke to Amy Van Arend, who was a women's football commentator. She's also a producer for UEFA now. So she was at the Camp Nou as well. So maybe we should try and follow up with her too.
Yeah, no, it's certainly really been good to see from that original chat with the deal being signed, how it all translated from increased attention online, but also physically in the stands as well. And you're right, I'll be watching jealous, free on DAZN and YouTube, that's those semi-finals between Wolfsburg and Barcelona.
Well, thanks again for listening. Thanks again to Arianna for coming on. Do the whole like, subscribe, share thing. Find us on Twitter, and go and find N3XT Sports and Arianna on LinkedIn, and make sure you read that report, because it really is fascinating to see just how this kind of boom of women's football has taken off.